Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. We're going to be doing a reaction to Trump speaks day after guilty verdict in New York trial. Basically, Trump's guilty verdict speech. So we're going to be reacting to it. If you're new here, do me a favor, a strong favor. I don't mean to be a cliche, but could you pretty please hit that subscribe button? It would really help out the channel in a lot of ways, more than you think it would. And at the same time, press the like button. It also helps out the channel in a great way. Helps out the YouTube algorithm. But, yeah. We're going to be, I'm going to be reacting to this. I'm going to be listening to it. This was one of the rare clips I could find about Donald Trump's speech following the verdict. But, here we go.
They're bad people. These are, in many cases, I believe, sick people. When you look at our country, what's happening, where millions and millions of people are flowing in from all parts of the world, not just South America, from Africa, from Asia, from the Middle East, and they're coming in from jails and prisons, and they're coming in from mental institutions and insane asylums. They're coming in from all over the world into our country. And we have a president and a group of fascists that don't want to do anything about it, because they could right now, today, he could stop it. But he's not. They're destroying our country. Our country is in very bad shape. And
just going to pause right here because I can see the border wall doing its job like it should, especially to help control who comes in and who comes out and such. But the border wall, it's also good use because it's reducing the amount of traffickers that enter in and out of this country, whether it be drug smugglers, sex trafficking, human trafficking, stuff like that. And yes, I do believe that immigrants should have the right to come to the United States of America, just as long as they follow the rule of our country, and that's by applying the steps to come to the proper way, the proper channels, by applying for a green card, citizenship, a residency type of thing, instead of coming through illegally, undocumentedly. The main reason why I do support coming legally, other than the fact it is the law of the land, though, how would you like it if someone came into your property illegally and the cops could do nothing about it? And if you were to harm them in any way, you would go to prison. You wouldn't like that, would you? No, you wouldn't. So, we as Americans, we should always focus on the strength of our country. Yes, our country is a melting pot of cultures. And there are other countries where some citizens are better off, but here in America, everyone gets a chance. Doesn't matter if you're a first, second, third, fourth, or whatever generation of immigrants. You're always welcome here, regardless. You're going to get the bad apples that will leave a nasty taste in your mouth, but they're just bad apples. They're the racists. I don't mind if you come to the United States, just as long as you take the proper channels, proper steps to come here legally. Try to learn the language, as a great deal of our country speaks English, and majority of us do not speak any other language except English, but a quarter or so of the population does speak another language. Just want to keep that in mind.
they're very much against me saying these things. They want to raise your taxes by 4 times. They want to stop you from having cars. with their ridiculous mandates that make it impossible for you to get a car or afford a car. It would make it very possible for China to build all of our cars. It's a very serious problem that we have. We just went through one of many experiences where we had a conflicted judge, highly conflicted.
Oh, and I'm going to pause again. Speaking of the cars, the price of the auto market, yes, it is unbelievably expensive, which is why I do believe that all of us should be able to have a used vehicle that costs no more than a house. Because if you're going to pay like $50,000 or more for a vehicle, you may as well just buy a house at that price, okay? There's no way a vehicle should cost the same as a house. I'm sorry, it should not. Only the greedy bastards are going to say that a car should cost as much. No way.
There's never been a more conflicted judge. Now, I'm under a gag order, which nobody's ever been under. No presidential candidate's ever been under a gag order before. I'm under a gag order, nasty gag order, where I've had to pay thousands of dollars in penalties and fines and was threatened with jail. Think of it, I'm the leading candidate. I'm leading Biden by a lot, and I'm leading the Republicans to the point where that's over. So I'm the leading person for president, and I'm under a gag order by a man that can't put two sentences together, given by a court, and they are in total conjunction with the White House and the DOJ, just so you understand. This is all done by Biden and his people. And maybe his people more importantly. I don't know if Biden knows too much about it, because I don't know if he knows about anything. But he's nevertheless the president, so we have to use his name. And this is done by Washington, and nobody's ever seen anything like it. So we have a judge who's highly conflicted. You know what the confliction is. Nobody wants to write about it, and I'm not allowed to talk about it. If I do, he said, I get put in jail. So we'll play that game a little bit longer. We won't talk about it, but you're allowed to talk about it. I hope you do, because there's never been anybody so conflicted as this. As far as the trial itself, it was very unfair. We weren't allowed to use our election expert under any circumstances. You saw what happened to some of the witnesses that were on our side. They were literally crucified by this man who looks like an angel, but he's really a devil. He looks so nice and soft. People say, oh, he seems like such a nice man. No, unless you saw him in action. And you saw that with a certain witness that went through hell. And when we wanted to do things, he wouldn't let us do those things. But when the government wanted something, they got everything. They got everything they wanted. It was a rigged trial. We wanted a venue change where we could have a fair trial.
I do believe that it was rigged, yes. Because if you do think about it, in this country, it doesn't matter your political affiliation. There's going to be people that are for Trump, people that are against Trump, and you can try to get a jury that's pretty much trying to get a jury that's not really as biased is really hard, because there are those that do have a lot of opinions of Trump, whether it be good or bad. But basically they've been doing a witch hunt for Trump. Well, witch hunt, as he calls it, and a lot of other people call it, since the day he was elected, even prior when he was running for office. But, yeah. Sorry that I'm moving. I'm just can't seem to get comfy in this office chair. But yeah, the trial it was more or less of a sham because all 34 charges were guilty in the verdict, and I'm like, okay. And New York is the most democratic state, or one of the most democratic states that are out there in the nation, and or one of the most progressive states other than California. But with New York, I can certainly see that. And let's proceed, shall we?
We didn't get it. We wanted a judge change. We wanted a judge that wasn't conflicted. And obviously he didn't do that. Nobody's ever seen
When he says conflicted, he means bias.
anything like it. We had a DA who was a failed DA. Crime is rampant in New York, violent crime. That's what he's really supposed to be looking at. Crime is rampant in New York. Yesterday in McDonald's, you had a man hitting him up with machetes, a machete. Whoever can imagine even a machete being wielded in a store, in a place where they're eating, and he's going rampant. And Bragg is down watching a trial on what they call crimes. They're falsifying business records. That sounds so bad. To me, it sounds very bad. You know, it's only a misdemeanor, but to me, it sounds so bad. When they say falsifying business, that's a bad thing for me. I've never had that before. I'm falsifying. You know what falsifying business records is? In the first degree. They say falsifying business records. Sounds so good, right? It means that legal expense. I paid a lawyer, totally legal. I paid a lawyer a legal expense. And a bookkeeper, without any knowledge from me, correctly marked it down in the books. A very professional woman, highly respected. She testified. Marked it down in the books as a legal expense. So a legal expense, paid a lawyer, is a legal expense in the books. It's not sheetrock, construction, or any other thing. It's a legal expense. Think of that. This is what the falsification of business records were. And I said, what else are you going to call it? What else are you going to call it? Now, I would have testified. I wanted to testify. The theory is you never testify, because as soon as you testify, anybody, if it were George Washington, don't testify, because they'll get you on something that you said slightly wrong, and then they sue you for perjury. But I didn't.
Oh, that is very true. Which I think is why a lot of Americans today don't want to testify for anything really, because if you're going down with whatever. And there could be an auto accident and there could be witnesses. But how many witnesses would actually come forward in an accident they saw it? Especially if one of the people were violent. Because they don't want to tell the officer something and risk getting killed or whatever by the person themselves or someone that's with them. But yes, in the legal setting, I could see this. Which is why I hope to never get called for jury duty, because well, I've been called before, but I got out every time. But needless to say, I don't do good in a conflict situation like this. Example, if I would have been a juror, I would have been biased. Mostly due to the fact that, well, with Trump, at the time when I did vote for him, I was thinking of America first, and I was also thinking about the working class. Trump is a businessman. Yes, he's failed several times, but he's also bounced back several times as well. I'm trying to sound as least biased as I can, but I'm just stating what I know. I'm sorry.
I didn't care about that. I wanted to. But the judge allowed them to go into everything that I was ever involved in. Not this case. Everything that I was ever involved in. which is a first. In other words, you could go into every single thing that I ever did. Was he a bad boy here? Was he a bad boy there? And my lawyer said, what do you need to go through? And all you wanted to do is testify simply on this case. Because I would have loved to have testified. To this day, I would have liked to have testified. But you would have said something out of whack, like it was a beautiful sunny day and it was actually raining out. And I very much appreciate the big crowd of people outside. That's incredible what's happening. The level of support has been incredible. So the whole thing is legal expense was marked down as legal expense. Think of it. This is the crime that I committed, that I'm supposed to go to jail for 187 years for.
Become the master of the air, the thunder of the seas, or a tank fury in the epic multiplayer action game War.
When you have violent crime all over this city at levels that nobody's ever seen before, where you have businesses leaving, and businesses are leaving because of this, because heads of businesses say, man, we don't want to get involved with that. I could go through the books of any business person in this city, and I could find things that in theory, I guess, let's indict him, let's destroy his life. But I'm out there, and I don't mind being out there because I'm doing something for this country, and I'm doing something for our Constitution. It's very important, far beyond me. And this can't be allowed to happen to other presidents. It should never be allowed to happen in the future. But this is far beyond me. This is bigger than Trump. This is bigger than me. This is bigger than my presidency. And the people understand it because I just see a poll just came out, the Daily Mail. That was the first one, came out, was done last.
Oh, the Daily Mail. I don't trust the Daily Mail. I am sorry. I don't consider them a reputable source.
Night right after the verdict, where I'm up 6 points. 6 points from what we already were. We were leading fairly substantially. We're up 6 points in the Daily Mail poll. Now, maybe other polls come out and it says something differently. But a lot of people have predicted it because the public understands, and they understand what's going on. This is a scam. There's a rigged trial. It shouldn't have been in that venue. We shouldn't have had that judge. He should have allowed us to have an election expert. We had the best expert, most respected expert, head of the Federal Elections Commission. He was all set to testify. He was waiting for 2 days. And when it was his turn, Bragg's people protested. And the judge knocked him out, said you can't.
Yeah, that person should have been there during the whole thing, because with the whole being an expert thing, kind of would give us rundown statistics and whatever, what would have happened and whatnot, but that did not happen, unfortunately. And yes, more or less it was a rigged trial verdict type of thing, because they don't want him to be president. I don't really care if he is president or not, because I'm sure, well, I'm not going to be voting for him, but I'm not going to be voting for Biden. More or less, when it comes down to it, I'll write down a write-in Republican candidate that is running for office, or was running for office for presidency. But if the GOP basically is loving Trump, I'm just going to choose a different candidate, because face it, I don't see myself voting for Trump, even though deep down it'd be the better choice, because I am a Republican, well, a moderate to independent, but yeah. Get back to the thing, shall we? Sorry I keep doing this.
Testify. He actually said you can't testify for anything having to do with the trial. You can say what the federal elections is. Well, that doesn't help. Everybody knows that. But you can't testify. So essentially, he wasn't able to testify. Other people weren't able to testify. But with these people, they were able to use people salacious. By the way, and nothing ever happened. There was no...
Hold on, salacious. 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 Oh. It's spelled Salacious. According to the Oxford Dictionary, it's an adjective meaning having or conveying undue or inappropriate interest in sexual matters. Its origin is Latin. Mid-17th century. Basically, it's I'm going to call it a fancy way of saying lustful or lecherous. I don't know, but lustful. Proceeding.
Anything. Nothing ever happened and they know it. But they were as salacious as they could be, and it had nothing to do with the case, but it had to do with politics. And do you notice the timing? The timing was perfect. This case was dead. It was dropped by every agency, every governmental board. It was dropped by the highly respected Southern District. They said, no, there's no case here. It was dropped by federal election, and that's what it's about. This is about a federal election, not a state election. You're not even allowed to look at it. They took the state and the city, and they went into a federal election. They're not allowed. The people from federal election, Southern District, and Washington dropped the case. Everybody dropped the case. There was no case. Cy Vance dropped the case. And when Bragg came in, he said, this is the most ridiculous case I've ever seen. And who would have a certain person, again, gag order, who would have a certain person like this ever testify? He said, this is essentially one of the worst people I've ever seen, ever, to testify. He said, the craziest case I've ever seen. This is Bragg. Then when I announced I was running for president, long time later, they decided to revive this case. And they got a judge, Judge Marchand, who was responsible for another case that was also brought. It destroyed the life of a very good man, by the way. Destroyed the life of a very good man who went to prison once, and then they just put him in prison again because they said he lied. He didn't lie. I looked at the statements he made. In fact, he didn't remember something, and they put him in jail. Again, they've destroyed him. With me for many years, he was an honorable person. He was an honest man. And if you look at what he did, supposedly, it never happened. There's never been anything like this.
Oh, man. That's gotta suck. Man, there are things that a lot of us remember doing and a lot of us don't remember doing. And if it was so long ago, we really don't remember. And I do, however, remember a lot of things. But after a while, there's certain things, as time goes on, start losing memory of. Just like some of us, we lose the memory of our loved ones, of what their voice sounded like and whatnot. But yeah, in this case, in a legal setting, throwing someone in prison just for forgetting and then claiming that they lied, that ain't right.
The education of his grandchildren. He didn't report that he had a car or two cars on his income. I don't know. I wonder how many people here have cars. I wonder how many people said, oh, gee, I have a car that's worth X dollars. How do you even figure it? And I guess you do have to report it, but I would say probably almost nobody does. Nobody even thinks about it. They put this man, they destroyed this man, but they put him in jail again because they didn't want him to testify. They didn't want him to testify. That's why he went to jail. They put him in jail twice. He's 77 years old. Now, normally I'd say that's an old guy, but I don't feel 77. Nobody ever says that about me. I'd like them to say, gee, we have to have a little sorrow for this man, because they just don't say that about me. But maybe I'm better off that way. I think I'm probably better off that way. But they put him in jail twice. And you have to see what they put him in jail. And he was threatened by the judge. This man was told, you're going to get 15 years in jail if you don't give up Trump. And he was told that. You're going to get 15 years in jail. And he made a plea deal because he didn't want to spend the rest of his life. And he was told that viciously. We're living in a fascist state. He was told that viciously. So you can go to jail for 4 months, 5 months, or you can get 15 years in jail. So do a plea. Almost who wouldn't do that plea? Everyone does those pleas. It's a horrible thing. There's a whole group of lawyers that fight that. It's so unfair. It's so unfair. But they destroyed his life. So many other things. You look at Southern District didn't want to bring the case. Nobody wanted to bring the case. And then you know who didn't want to bring the case? Most of all is Bragg. Bragg didn't want to bring it. But then he brought it. And they tried to make it a different case. They didn't say legal expense equal legal expense. Again, if I wrote down and paid a lawyer, and by the way, this was a highly qualified lawyer. Now, I'm not allowed to use his name because of the gag order. But you know, he's a sleazebag. Everybody knows that. Took me a while to find out. But he was effective. He did work. But he wasn't a fixer. He was a lawyer. You know, they like to use the word fixer. He wasn't a fixer. He was a lawyer. At the time, he was a fully accredited lawyer. Now, he got into trouble not because of me. He got into trouble because he made outside deals and he had something to do with taxi cabs and medallions and he borrowed money. And that's why he went. And then he pled to three election violations. And as soon as I saw that, I said, I wonder why he did that. He pled. He took a deal. Now, he took a deal because he wanted to get off. In other words, I'll take a plea deal and I want to get off. And he wanted to make a deal with the Southern District. And they wrote the worst report I think I've ever seen on any human being, other than the report that was written on James Comey by the Inspector General, a very great Inspector General, actually. Wrote a report that was so bad. This one was possibly worse. The Southern District, the judge didn't let us use it. He said, it's hearsay. I said, it's not hearsay. Wouldn't let us use it. This is about the man.
Okay, Trump is
But
going
he got
on
in
and on.
trouble for a very simple reason. Because he was involved with borrowing a lot of money and he did something with the banks. I don't know if it's defrauded the banks, but something happened. You guys know what it is. And then in addition to that,
No, I don't.
he gave up on three things where he wasn't guilty. In fact, they were going to testify in that. The head of the FEC, the Brad Smith, the election expert, #1 rated in the country, was going to testify. He took a plea on three things. He just added them in because that gave him more bargaining power with respect to me. But the three things that he pled on, having to do with the election and having to do essentially a little bit with me, they weren't crimes. They weren't crimes.
They weren't?
Nor is paying money under an NDA. So we have an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. It's a big deal, a non-disclosure agreement. Totally honorable, totally good, totally accepted. Everybody.
Yeah, at my work, we do have an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, that we had to sign, and it is a legally binding contract. Now, there's certain things that we can and we can't talk about while we're both on the clock and off the clock. And if we get caught doing it, we could either be terminated or other consequences. But I can certainly understand the non-disclosure agreements. They're there for a reason, but sometimes NDAs are more troublesome than they really are because they do hide the real issue at hand and what could be wrong. But in this case, with Trump, with the hush money, and with his business dealings, I can certainly see why now it's being marked as evilish, devilish, something like that. But getting back to the thing, because this is a 33:59 video, and I'm not gonna lie though, this is taking forever.
Everybody has them. Every company has non-disclosure agreements. But the press called it slush fund and all sorts of other things. Hush money, hush money. It's not hush money. It's called a non-disclosure agreement. And most of the people in this room have a non-disclosure agreement with their company. It's a disgrace. So it's not hush money. It's a non-disclosure agreement, totally legal, totally common. Everyone has it. And what happened is he signed a non-disclosure agreement with this person, I guess other people, but it's totally honest. You're allowed to make the payment. You don't have to make it, and you can make it any way you want. It's a non-disclosure agreement. And he signed that. And there was nothing wrong with signing it. And this should have been a non-case. And everybody said it was a non-case, including Bragg. Bragg said, until I ran for office. And then they saw the polls. I was leading the Republicans. I was leading the Democrats. I was leading everybody. And all of a sudden, they brought it back. It's a very sad thing that's happening in our country. And it's a thing that I'm honored. In a way, I'm honored. It's not that it's pleasant. It's very bad for family. It's very bad for friends and businesses. But I'm honored to be involved in it because somebody has to do it. And I might as well keep going and be the one. But I'm very honored to be involved because we're fighting for our Constitution. The money that was paid legally. There was nothing illegal. In fact, the lawyer in creating the NDA, because at that time he was a fully accredited lawyer. He wasn't a fixer. I never thought of him as a fixer. The media called him a fixer, or the prosecutors called him a fixer. He was a lawyer. And he was fairly good. Later on, I didn't like what he did. I didn't like, for instance, I didn't like that when I became president, he went around and made deals with companies. When I heard that, he was gone. He was gone. And he had payments coming to him. And a lot of this involved things that are very simple. There was nothing wrong. This was standard stuff, all standard stuff. Everything involved was standard. There was no crime here. In fact, I just watched a couple of the reports. You watched Jonathan Turley, Andy McCarthy, Greg Jarrett. You look at all of these people, Mark Levin, all very talented people, great people, many more. And they don't know me, essentially. They don't know me. They're legal scholars and experts. But I look at them. I watched Turley this morning saying, there's no crime here. Everybody says there's no crime here, except for this DA that's got the city out of control with crime. It's absolutely out of control. So we have an NDA that was signed. We have legal expenses. And here's the thing, on legal expenses, you have 100 where they say they do a charge. I just recorded this out. Falsification of business records in the first degree. It sounds so bad. I said, wow. And even my own lawyers, I get very upset with them because they don't say what it is. They say, well, falsification of legal records is only a felony. Well, that's a lot. It's only they say a misdemeanor. But they try and bring it up to a felony if there's two crimes. They have all these different things. The other thing is they missed the statute of limitations by a lot. Because this was very old. They could have brought this 7 years ago instead of bringing it right in the middle of the election. So they missed the statute of limitations. They did everything. Now, let me give you the good news. The good news is, last night, we just got a report this morning, in the history of politics, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, somebody will find that I'm wrong, maybe, but I don't think so. They raised with small money donors, meaning like $21, $42, $53, $38, a record $39 million in about a 10-hour period. No, think of that. I like those people. Because so far, I guess it's backfired. Now, I don't know. I'd rather not have it happen. I don't want to have it backfire. I don't want to win this thing legitimately, not because they were stupid and did things that they shouldn't be doing. They shouldn't have brought this case. They were saying it this morning. This is a case that should not have been brought. I watched Andy McCarthy say this is a case that should not have been brought. Not have been brought. And that was this morning. But they all say that. Every legal scholar has said it. And these are great people. They really understand the law. The other thing, a poll just came out. The first poll, I don't know, maybe others will be bad. But a poll just came out a little while ago. The Daily Mail. Does anybody read the Daily Mail? It's very good. They have a good poll. At least I like it today. And the Daily Mail just came out with a poll. And it has Trump up 6 points in the last 12 hours. 6 points. 6 points since this happened. Who thought this could happen? Because the people of our country know it's a hoax. They know it's a hoax. They get it. You know, they're really smart. And it's really something. So we're going to be appealing this scam. We're going to be appealing it on many different things. He wouldn't allow us to have witnesses. He wouldn't allow us to talk. He wouldn't allow us to do anything. The judge was a tyrant. And you got to see that with Bob Costello. A fine man. I've never seen anything like it. And neither has anybody that was in that courthouse where he demanded that the courthouse be cleared. Now, the good news is most of the people in the courthouse were the media. And anybody that was in the media, if you're fair, you'll say, wow. That was anger. That was crazed. He was crazed. And the reason that Bob Costello acted a little bit upset, which I think he has a right to, was that every question he was being asked was being objected to by the other side and sustained by the judge. Sustained. I think he did it many times.
Oh, that is the most annoying thing when watching court shows and crime shows is where the judge goes, sustain this, sustain that, blah, blah, blah. It's like, seriously, let the lawyers do their job. Just let them ask the damn questions. Because they need to do that in order for them to do their job successfully. I really don't care. Just let them do the job the way that they're supposed to.
I don't know what the number, many times. Even I was sitting there saying, and these were basic questions. And I never saw anybody treated that way by a judge. And I've been treated very badly by two other judges also, because it's all the same thing. And it all comes out of the White House. Crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of our country. He's the worst president in the history of our country. The most incompetent. He's the dumbest president we've ever had. He's the dumbest president, most incompetent president, and he's the most dishonest president we've ever had. And so many of he's a Manchurian candidate. You take a look at the way he treats China, Russia, so many others. You know, I ended the Russian pipeline. It was dead. He comes in and he approves it. And he gets $3.5 million, meaning $3.5 million is paid to the family, his family, from the mayor of Moscow's wife. And I said, where did that come from? Nobody wants to talk about it. But he's a very big danger to our country. And the only way they think they can win this election is by doing exactly what they're doing right now. Win it in the courts because they can't win it at the ballot box. So we're going to show them that, we're going to fight. It's actually, I don't know, it's something where I'm wired in such a way that...
Yeah, I'm just going to cut it off right here because he's just going on and on and on. On and on and on and on and on. But yeah, pretty much this whole guilty verdict thing with Trump, it hasn't hurt him at all in the slightest. it's basically going to have a lot more people voting for him now, especially since a lot of Biden supporters would rather be focusing and crying about the whole Israel Palestine thing instead of focusing about here at home. So, pretty much when Trump was charged, when he had that wanted thing like last year, and now with the guilty verdict, oh yeah. I believe Trump may actually win this election because he has the supporters. He really does have the supporters, I'm not gonna lie. It's going to be a miracle, or not really a miracle. It's going to be quite surprising if he does win. But if Biden wins, that's also going to be surprising. Pretty much this whole election is going to be surprising. I don't mean to keep you here forever, but yeah, I'm not voting for Trump, but we should always put America first regardless, because America is our home. Bye.